That didn't look right.
Oh, yeah. Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson. Seed Sue. Come in, Seed Sue.
Hello, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
We're together and we're online. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good, thank you. And I see King Gibbon is here too.
Indeed he is.
Yeah, how are you?
Pretty good. Ken, that background you have there, is that like the prison wall that you're inside? Because
Yeah,
it looks
they
like.
stuck me in prison.
That's what it looks like. Or is that a green screen?
That's a green screen.
Okay.
I'm just playing around, see what I can find.
Mine is not a green screen. I'm actually in the House of the Fawn at Pompeii.
And I'm in my office in the World Trade Center.
It's a damn good imitation. You don't look quite as comfy as you did last week. Last week you were in the mountains, it looked like.
Yeah, that's right. Now I'm inside.
Okay, Phil, I was asking Ken before we went online, and I'll ask you. Oh damn! Now I've lost it. Where was it? Gotta find it again. Where was that? I wanted to. Yes, this one. We were just talking about. Have you heard of this TikToker who's made a tremendous sensation with going online and saying that it was terrible to have her in a cotton field on vacation?
Why was she afraid of actually having to do some work?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I thought it was just as an introductory topic, it was worthy of comment at least. Why would a cotton field be so upsetting? I mean, have people gotten so? I mean, I was asking Ken about his recent presentations on psychology, and I'm just wondering, what is it? I mean, is it narcissism? Is it basically jumping on a bandwagon that we can't get off? That basically everything has to be about slavery if you're Black? I mean, is that really the?
Well, see, they have had a winning formula for the last 50 years, crying racism, crying discrimination, and it's worked for them. They have gotten the ghetto lottery over and over and over again by filing lawsuits claiming this. And so it's a knee-jerk reaction. They realize that they can get mileage off of claiming these things, and so they just claim it everywhere. And I don't think that's such a bad occurrence, because there's donor fatigue, there's all sorts of fatigues. Pretty soon we're going to come up with racism fatigue, and people will just stop ignoring it. So I don't mind her being those silly little things, but I do want to point out that I have worked constantly since the age of 10. And so that's 57 years that I've actually worked every year. And when my first jobs, when I was 10 years old, I was working in the fields. I picked beans, I picked strawberries, I picked cherries, and that's what we did. And at that time in Oregon, when we did that, everybody was white. We all did that work. Now, my grandparents, both sides of them, were cotton farmers, and my grandfather farmed cotton. He was the largest cotton farmer in the state of Arizona, an independent cotton farmer. You had corporate cotton farms that were larger, but individual independent cotton farmers. My grandfather was the largest cotton farmer in the state of Arizona, and he hired people to pick cotton, but they weren't. There were a lot of them were blacks, but they weren't only blacks. There was a little town of Randolph, which was near Coolidge, Arizona, and it was primarily a black community of cotton pickers. And boy, it was a shanty town because that's the way they lived. And then the white cotton pickers, they had a better lifestyle, even though they got paid the same. She's just trying to get mileage by going to the well one too many times, claiming everything is racist. So I'm proud that when I was a kid, I picked beans and I picked strawberries, and people should be proud of the work they do. And I think, was it William Shakespeare that said, "Whate'er thou art, act well thy part." If you're picking cotton, you be the best cotton picker, best cotton picker you can be. That's what I think.
Okay, but this is the bad part. And this is what we need to think about, especially the three of us. She's gotten 13 million views on this video where she took a tour of her Airbnb. What will it take you, me, and Ken to get 13 million views of anything we do?
Well, I think Ken needs to change his green screen so that maybe it's a beautiful woodland setting. Oh, there it is.
There it is. We'll see what happens.
The 13 million are going to come in now.
You think? I mean, no, seriously. Why this? It's not just her psychology that we've got to be worried about. Ken, it's the country. There are 13 million people who want to hear this little young lady. I was about to call her something a phrase that we used to describe people like her in the South, but it, began with P and end with nanny. But I won't say that. Why are people? I mean, Bill was talking about fatigue, but they obviously are not fatigued, are they?
Well, what I see in this is these people are so desperate to find racism that they have to just invent it out of nowhere.
Okay, but I'm saying her invention worked. 13 million hits. Let's be honest. Have the three of us gotten 13 million hits in the past 10 years?
I think it's probably a fluke. But the fact that it happened, still says volumes. But I haven't seen the comments that people left. I just wonder, of those 13 million, how many are mocking her and how many of them are supporting her? And my guess is probably most of them are mocking her. But then again, you can fake hits. So it could be somebody on the left, I doubt this, but it could be somebody on the left is generating hits rather by the millions. I mean, literally, there could be.
Well, I read an article recently, and it says there was one person on some sort of social media platform, was it Instagram or TikTok or something like that, and the title was how she makes a six-figure income every month. And so there's a lot of people following a lot of different of these influencers on social media. And so why does Ken Givenden not have that type of influence? Because they ban him. They ban all of us. It's the whole social media is run by people that are opposed to our point of view. And it just shocks me that every single one of these social media platforms that are major have taken the same approach as the mainstream media, and they're opposed to our views. I don't know how that happened, except that maybe they were just influenced from the time they were kids, because I received indoctrination when I was a kid, and I'm sure you guys did too, to promote the left-wing integrationist platform, and we've rejected it, but most people have not.
Strange to say, I must have gone to a very strange school, because at least in my 5 years in a public school in Dallas, Texas, there was no left-wing indoctrination at all. I mean, it was a neighborhood. Do either of you know Highland Park in Dallas?
No.
Yeah, it's a small neighborhood in the middle of town, and it's a separate community. And I guess it's pretty unusual. they finally broke it up. It used to be called an quote unquote elite white enclave in Dallas, Texas, and it was largely John Birch type people, and so those teachers didn't try to brainwash us at all. But that was a different world, and I think that even Highland Park has been broken up at this point. But I wanted to get to the more serious topic. I mean, I wish I could understand why this girl did it, and B, why 13 million people watched it, but whatever. Bill, I wanted to ask you, because this is something that's in the news a lot recently in relation to COVID. Of course, it originally has an origin in the concept of genocide and race relations. What is your perspective on Nuremberg, and particularly the Nuremberg Code, but not just the Nuremberg Code? I really wanted to talk to you about last week. You mentioned about how the courts have become overwhelmingly political. We were talking about Rittenhouse and Charlottesville and the case in Brunswick, Georgia, where three white men were basically initially exonerated by the people who actually investigated the case firsthand, and then because of political pressure, they were prosecuted and ultimately convicted, possibly facing life sentences for basically, doing something not that different from Kyle Rittenhouse. This is where I want to start. Do you think that the modern tendency towards outcome-based judicial manipulation through politics, do you believe that started at Nuremberg?
I don't know. You made reference to the Nuremberg Code. What is the Nuremberg Code? Can you recite it? Can you summarize it?
I can't recite it. I mean, but basically the way it's coming up right now is the Nuremberg Code is coming up in the context of COVID. In 1947, they had what was called the doctors' trials, or the doctors' trials concluded, the so-called Nazi doctors' trials. It followed the more famous one where Goering and Seyss-Inquart and all the big guys were on trial. But the Nazi doctors' trial ended in basically a statement that no one should be forced to participate in medical experiments without their express consent. And there's been this controversy about whether the COVID vaccine is actually violating the Nuremberg Code by forcing people to use something that didn't go through the regular channels. And I was wondering, as a lawyer, what do you think of that?
Right. Now, let me recite the 10 points of the Nuremberg Code as a basis. One, there must be the voluntary consent of the human subjects, which is what you just mentioned. And the experiment should be such as to yield fruitful results for the good of society. The experiment should be so designed and based on the results of animal experimentation and a knowledge of natural history of the disease that is anticipated results will justify the experiment. And the experiment should be so conducted as to avoid all unnecessary physical and medical suffering and injury. So it goes on and on. So that's basically what we're saying, is that it should be designed to be productive for society, to be effective for society, and voluntary participants, and not do harm. So what do I think? I think that there's a lot of conspiracy theories about the COVID testing is designed to subjugate the people and make them all sterile and create an underclass or whatever it is. I just think that it's been a mass knee-jerk reaction and hysteria based upon a misperception of how severe the disease is. I think that the influenza of the 19 teens that caused so many deaths, I think that no public official wants to be accused of seeing the same result here, and they just go overboard. And I think that it is, I think that eventually we will wake up and realize that it is overkill to require masks and vaccination cards and all that kind of stuff. But we're not there yet. And all of these people that are protesting in Europe and America to a lesser extent will eventually have effect, and will back away from this crazy era that we're in now. But the human race has always embraced silly, incorrect philosophies, and I think that this is just another one of them.
All right. I mean, in California right now, how severe is the situation? I mean, we're on Omicron now.
Well, if you're in Los Angeles County, then you are subject to a lot more restrictions than if you're in other counties. San Francisco is like Los Angeles, but Orange County, which is just a neighboring county to Los Angeles County, you don't have to wear masks and you don't have to show vaccination cards. There is some good trends in Los Angeles. One of the most important and hip California restaurant chains is In-N-Out Burger. And whenever I pass one of those In-N-Out burgers, the line just go around the block all hours of the day. And I've had them out. I'm not a fan of In-N-Out burgers, just a hamburger and fries, but everybody loves them here. And the leaders of the In-N-Out Burger, the captains of that business, put their hands on their hips and they say, we're not going to force people to show their vaccination cards. And so when these kind of hip restaurant chains take that kind of stand, eventually it'll be effective.
I read something. I mean, that the attorney general or a governor or something was ordering an investigation, possibly a prosecution of In-N-Out Burger.
I know that the San Francisco district attorney has shut them down and they voluntarily closed. We'll see how this plays out. There needs to be some civil disobedience and in this country, and that's, I think, one of the more benign civil disobedient efforts you can take, and one that is more appropriate. If you say, I'm not going to card our guests for a COVID vaccination, that is the exact perfect example of what civil disobedience should be.
It's interesting here in New Orleans. It's almost hilarious. I stopped going to restaurants for a couple of months, but finally I just couldn't stand it anymore. Had to go out, and the weirdness is that in the French Quarter, in the Central Business District, and along St. Charles and Carrollton Avenues, they are following the municipal vaccine demand to the T, pretty much. But if you go off on either side of St. Charles Avenue, just a couple of blocks, they're totally ignoring it.
What surprises me is I'm not aware of any country that has just come out and says it's a bunch of hooey. The COVID is not the bugaboo that we thought it is. Live your life normally. Are there any countries that are doing that?
Not that I know of. I mean, what do you think of Austria? They're putting people in jail or threatening to put people in jail. Austria. I mean, and Switzerland voted, apparently, I don't know if it was a fixed election or what, but Switzerland voted not to retreat from COVID. So no, I'm not aware of any country that says.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Europe is all messed up. I mean, my wife just pointed out that in France, there is a very strong, powerful, ultra right wing pro-France movement now, and a leader that's really taking over Marine Le Pen's efforts. And my wife was so pleased about his name is Zamor or something like that. And so I looked him up, and he's Algerian, and his wife is from Tunisia, and they're saying France has to say French. So Europe is just messed up. When the leading pro-France leader is from Tunisia and Algeria, there's no hope. So I think the solution has to come from other than Europe. I don't know.
Ken, what do you think? Are you living a fairly normal life in Indiana right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think in Sweden, they have a no lockdown policy, and they seem to be doing fine. But, I've got a lot of questions. I'm really not into conspiracy theories, but, the Wuhan laboratory was there. I don't know why it's there. What was the purpose of that? Was it just totally civil? Was it military? Was it both? Why did this virus even come into existence, and was it manufactured?
I don't believe that's a conspiracy theory. I believe that it was manufactured in China, and I think that people that have called it the China virus, have been coming under pressure by the mainstream media and others, by the establishment. So I think the real conspiracy is the establishment trying to say that it didn't emanate from China. I think it's man-made. I think it came from China.
Okay.
Why did they make it? I mean, what was their end goal, their purpose? I mean, I don't know. I can only guess and speculate, which is kind of dangerous, but I'm wondering if the Chinese were thinking, and I know the Israelis did this, or I heard they did, is let's come up with a virus that is to which East Asians are immune. I don't even know if that's possible or not, but could be, that's pure speculation. I have no idea, but it's hard to imagine that thought hasn't entered into their minds. And maybe, just maybe, this was was what they're working on.
I think that there are nefarious actions and actors and plans in most countries. And I believe that now that China is becoming has become a developed country, maybe their nefarious acts are less subtle and more apparent than what we've done in America. But America has done a lot of bad things too. And in fact, I just heard that that the Attorney General under Garrett Maryland, or whatever his name is going after PTA moms, trying to arrest PTA moms. So there's nefarious acts in every country. America is no exception.
The big question I've got about the Wuhan lab, though, is are we really even being fair in calling it the China virus? Because that lab was created with American money, wasn't it? That is my understanding. I mean, do you understand anything different?
Well, I think there was funding there, but I don't believe that that America was wanting to design what is it called, a bacterium or whatever, a virus that would attack.
Allegedly a virus which has never been isolated, apparently, which is why they can't do a real vaccine, because they can't actually infect anyone with it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I just can't wait to the day when we move beyond the COVID issue, when we move beyond the homosexual, transgender issues, when we just move back to living a normal life like it was in previous eras. And we'll get there someday. We're not going to, racism isn't going to be around every corner, and sexual orientation isn't going to be shoved in your face. We're going to go back to a normal existence, and then it'll be butterflies and unicorns from then on out.
But will they be white unicorns, or will they have to be mixed race unicorns?
That's right. Yeah, there might not be any white people to enjoy it. That's for sure. Unless everybody listening to this podcast gets married and has a bunch of white kids.
Well, I mean, how long do you plan on living? I mean, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I mean, what's your? Do you think you'll live long enough to see this world?
Well, I have been talking collapse for the last 30 years, and it's never happened. Where I've said that we can't just keep printing money, and this fiat currency approach is just stupid, and everything's going to collapse, and we're going to go back to the potato famine in Ireland of the late 1800s or whenever it was. And I've been saying that for 30 years and it's never happened. But this, I have the skinny now. It's gonna happen. So we'll see. We'll see if it does. But I give us another 10 years. I think there's going to be precipitous change in the next 10 years. And we're going to be pointing our fingers and say, I told you so.
Ken, are you that optimistic? Do you think we can get back to normal in 10 years?
Well, it depends on what you mean by normal. In my mind, normal is the 1950s and the early 1960s, which is long gone. So my way of thinking, we already lost it. I mean, this is not normal. We have whatever they call them. I call them rainbow people. Not that many of them, but basically they dominate everything. That's not normal. I mean, the way the people think today, back, when I was a kid, nobody thought that way. How did they get inside our heads? How did they change our minds? How do they convince white people that we are evil, that somehow other ethnic groups have priority when it comes to crying about oppression, but something happens to us, we have to pretend it's not even racial, like this SUV that ran over a Christmas parade full of old people. No race mentioned there, but you know good and well, had the races been reversed, that's all they would have talked about. So the point is, our mindset, that Melu has had a major shift, and maybe it moved so slowly that nobody noticed. But those of us who are categorized as baby boomers, particularly, our age, 60s, late 60s, yeah, we have definitely seen it. So it's coming, but I like Bill said, they keep predicting doomsday. But go back in history as long as you can. There's never been a perfect society. There's never been a perfect government. There's always been fighting to get to that, and it just hasn't happened. I think we came the closest we possibly could in 1776, and trying to make that happen again, make America great again, I think is a noble ideal, but I'm not sure we can actually make it happen.
Well, I think if we look at the long history of the world, these large countries are the exception. City-states, smaller municipalities and governmental groups were the norm. And I think that we are going to be heading to a breakup. I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be an economic collapse. The fiat currency approach that we've taken for the last 60 years or whatever is no longer going to work, and the dollar is going to be devalued, and so it's going to lead to a lot of conflict, and where this capitalism, I think, is going to collapse, and it'll be reduced to maybe to individual ownership of a lot of the means of production, like the left is saying. And so then that'll cause a breakup of the large countries. And I think we might go back to more city-state municipal government, and the large monolithic United States of America may break up. And then you'll start to see enclaves of whites, and then they will rebuild. And it may take a couple hundred years, but then I think we will begin to rebuild. But we have to first realize that our genes, our genetic makeup, is very important, and we must pass it on to our descendants. We can't have our beautiful white children marry other races. We have to have our own kids, so that when the breakup comes and we go back to city-states, we will have a nucleus of good, beautiful white families to build a 1950s America again.
Amen. But wow, I mean, I'll tell you what worries me most about the model of breakup and city return to city states, and you can tell me what you think. What worries me most about that is China. I mean, the source of our conversation just a minute ago. I mean, China obviously does not respect the Nuremberg Code. They, whether they originated this thing on purpose or not, they could have. They are morally capable of doing it. And basically, even if Los Angeles and San Francisco, New York become cities, they're big cities, but they have no military capacity at all. And those are the biggest cities. Uh, you know, a how if the United States were to break up into city states, wouldn't the whole world basically be engulfed as part of China?
Well, I think that the destruction and the demise and the decline and fall of the white race is at the hands of the white race. We have engineered our own self-destruction. And in the 1950s that Ken Given was talking about, we were a large percentage of the world population, and we controlled virtually the entire world. And we caused our own demise. And so, since we can destroy ourselves, I don't necessarily think that China can do a better job of destroying us. I think they might. They might.
I'm not sure that's encouraging. I'm really not sure that's encouraging.
I'm not sure that they're. I mean, the Asians look up to white people, and of course, there's aspects that are just terrible when they see a white woman with tattoos all up and down her arm and piercings all over her body. That's just terrible. But they respect and admire the white people. So when we reassert our own self pride, and then even if we are small enclaves and China is a big monolithic world power, I don't think it's going to be as destructive as what we've done ourselves, and I think we can rebuild.
Well, virtually every baby who is born comes equipped with that very mindset. And their mind has to be changed, and that is a good thing. But if white people are effectively bred out of existence, it's gone forever. So, yeah. Is that possible? I don't know. But
yeah, well, I think that we have to realize that our genes are the most precious, and when we spread those genes with other races, it's giving up our major treasure, and they're taking our major treasure. And so we have to realize that our genetic makeup, our heritage, our history is precious. And you can say that every race and every group is precious, but that's fine. Let them say that. If every group felt that way, there would be less miscegenation and less interracial marriage, and so it's a good thing. But to say that everybody is equal, there's no difference between the races, and that race is a construct, that leads to the ultimate destruction of the white race. We should encourage every group of people to have pride in their own existence and want to maintain it.
How are we going to get it? I mean, Ken asks a good question. How are we going to get enough influence in the next 100 years to make that possible? I mean, never mind 10. I mean, I guess really the one thing you could say about tattoos is that, Lamarckian evolution does not exist. So white women will not destroy the race by getting tattoos. But too often, I mean, they're getting tattoos, and then they're marrying non-whites, or just mating with non-whites, I guess I should say. That's getting, I mean, in urban areas like New Orleans, like Los Angeles, you see so much of that. Are there enough isolated rural communities to keep the race alive?
It's not just the women that are doing that. In Los Angeles, it's the men that are doing that in great numbers. These white, good-looking, sharp white men are marrying non-white women more and more and more. So we are at the absolute nadir of Western civilization. We will rebuild. We will. Her hope springs eternal, and I think that there will be enough of us. There will be a remnant, and we will survive and thrive in the coming generations.
So you think we've hit rock bottom?
Yes, I don't think we can devolve any lower than what we're at now. And it's ironic because Ken, you and I remember we're 50s kids. We remember when in the 1950s, I started school in 1950, and of course I think Charles Lincoln is a youngster compared to us, but I remember that. I mean, I also first started driving in the 1960s, and so we've seen such a dramatic change since then. But
I asked you this once before. What was your first car? Just curious.
A Rambler, a Rambler Classic.
My brother had one of those. I don't know if it's a classic or not, but he had a Rambler.
Yeah, it was a Rambler.
He had a 1940s. We were way off topic, but he had a 1940 Chevy that the neighbor had, and that turkey sold that thing, traded it in for a Rambler. But he could shoot himself now for doing that. But yeah, Rambler.
But it's interesting. You guys need to remember that when I first started driving, and when you first started driving, the cars are basically no different now. I mean, the tires are thick, the steering wheel, you turn it, and of course you have self-driving cars, but technology in so many other areas has surpassed the technology of automobiles. I mean, the real revolution is the information age, and that is something we're having to deal with. We didn't have this information age just 15 years ago. And so I think that we are dealing with this new powerful weapon, and we're going to overcome the obstacles of shadow banning and left-wing censorship. And once we get through that, there will be big progress being made. I remember in the 1980s, there used to be huge magazine stands on the street in Hollywood and around there. When you go there, and you just find magazines about every topic except one. You couldn't find any magazine that was pro-white. And now if you look on the internet, there's all sorts of pro-white websites and things like that. So there's some hope. We can be hopeful of the future.
That kind of loops back to one of the original questions: is all this technology basically was either originated by white people or second generation, a derivative of something white people invented. And the Chinese don't have that. They do not have the innate innovative capability that the Western people groups have. And if we're gone, they lose it. They have it because they got it from us. That's why they spy on our industries, because they can't come up with this stuff. Now, once they got it, they got it. But all the military might they have was engendered from the West, and they just applied it and figured out how to make that, reverse engineered it, figured out how to make that work. And so if we're gone, it's all gone. And by the way, keep in mind, talking about little babies, that when babies are born, they are born to be boys and girls. Doesn't matter what the left says. They're innately designed by nature, in my opinion, to be mothers and fathers and to protect their children and their families. So as the left is trying to destroy the nuclear family, they're working against science. They're working against nature. How long can they do that? Basically they have to reprogram every mind that comes out of the maternity ward and they seem to be doing a pretty good job of it. By the way,
I would say that they're only working on white people. They're not trying to reprogram blacks. I mean, there are a few gay blacks out there, but basically blacks are reproducing, Hispanics are reproducing, Asians seem to be reproducing. It's only the whites who are worried about the 32 genders. Am I wrong?
Now, who is that lieutenant governor? Geez, where was he? South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe, that was ranting about homosexuality. You guys remember seeing that in the news? Black guy, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he was doing exactly what Charles was saying. He wasn't fooled in the slightest, and he's taken quite a hit for it. But you know, nature is on our side. They have to keep up this reprogramming process. And I was, Bill, be interested in this. He probably knows something about it, but I came across something about the LDS and their language training institute. I don't know how it works, but I read this, that they can teach a native English speaker a Germanic language in 6 weeks. In a more difficult language like Eastern languages or Middle Eastern languages in 8 weeks. Now, what that told me was the human mind, average human mind, average intelligent people, you know, we have the capacity to learn an entirely new language in 6 weeks, you know? So what that tells me is make that analogous with thought reform. You can take somebody, teach them an entirely new language in 6 weeks. Well, what can you teach them if you take them and put them in the University of Wisconsin in 6 weeks? They're learning not a new language, but they're learning a new political language, a new worldview language. Maybe it's not quite as intense, but the outcome is the same. So you could take a teenage girl out of a fundamentalist Baptist church, and you can put that girl in the swamp of the University of Wisconsin. Maybe not 6 weeks, but in due time, they know what they're doing. They immerse these kids in this left-wing ideology, Marxism, and it's very rare that any of those kids come out with a clear mind, with rational thinking, and they think they're right. So, but that the whole point is that they can do it, they are doing it, but they have to work against nature to get that done.
That's true. So I think that if we get a modicum of power again, we can have our own re-education camps. And of course, the term concentration camp or re-education camp all have bad connotations attached. But essentially, like you say, our university systems are re-education camps to deprogram nature. Once we get a modicum of power, we can have re-education camps that will be eminently more effective because justice, right, and morality is on our side.
And human nature. I mean, our brains are pre-wired to think the opposite of Marxism. I mean, we already got it. All we got to do is reset it. So
yeah.
I would call them de-education camps or deprogramming camps. And, you know, like you say, we already got programming camps. They're called schools.
Yeah. We'll get there. It's discussions like this where our 20 and 30 listeners nod their head, you know, as opposed to the TikTok lady that had 13 million people nodding their heads. You know, we'll get there.
They may have been shaking their heads. I don't know. Yeah. But, you know, that you were talking about the advantage of the internet as opposed to the newsstands. I wouldn't have known you guys had it not been for the internet and dozens of more just like it. Jared Taylor, never heard of that guy till the internet came along. Peter Brimlow, had no idea who he was. I think I ran across his name in financial circles, but you know, and that's the tip of the iceberg. And just one other thought, Charles, is I'm amazed how many really smart people, I mean, professionals, physicians, dentists, who have their heads screwed on straight. You know, it's really remarkable. And I didn't even know those people existed. You know, I thought I was kind of out there all alone by myself, and boom, there they are, you know.
But how do we get that modicum of power that Bill is talking about? How could we get, I mean, if we could even get control of one medium-sized university and attract people to it, you know, that would be an amazing accomplishment because, you know, the re-education camps, those don't sound very attractive, but, you know, kids always want to go to college. And so if you could get a campus where people would be able to go, and yet, of course, they wouldn't be able to get federal financial aid to anything that we would ever create. And they'd be
Well, they're
targeted.
not going to be certified, that's for sure.
Well, we have that phenomenon taking place at the much smaller scale. The homeschooling industry has just exploded. People are afraid to send their kids to public schools for a variety of reasons. And homeschooling is by and large teaching correct principles. And so that's one place we're going on. But you say, how are we going to get there? I think that that we need to reelect Donald Trump, because regardless of all of his faults, he's pushing us in the right direction in many respects. We got to put Donald Trump back in the presidency, let him run amok like he does, and does some good things and does some bad things, and then start to build from there and get another leader. And there's a few people that are coming up that are bucking the system and the trend. And then we can start building, and then we'll revisit this issue in 10 years and see where we're at.
We are considered extremists by these people. So how, I think sometimes you need to have that extreme position just to make them look like they're centrist, but go back 100 years, 1920, what the three guys in this chat room believe, this was the moderate position. They weren't extremists. It's what everybody believed. So somehow there's a few of us who are hanging on to that mindset before it was tinkered with. But what is extreme and what is moderate? I think, in my opinion, I think we are the moderates, and everybody else is extreme relative to our position.
The interesting thing is, of course, Donald Trump objectively would be a moderate between us and them. I think that all of us, the three of us, are a little bit more conservative, maybe a lot more conservative than Donald Trump.
Right, but the beauty of Donald Trump is that he is bullheaded. He's bullheaded, and he digs in his heels. And so even though he'll take stands that we don't agree with, he won't give in on what he thinks. And he is also kind of narrow-minded and shallow-minded. And so that's a combination of what we need now. We need bullheaded, shallow-minded people running this country. And we'll get, and so.
I have to laugh. I mean, that is so funny what you're saying. But I mean, do you think there's any chance? I mean, that reminds me of something else I'm working on right now. I've got. Have either of you seen Mike Lindell's proposed complaint for the Attorney General's?
No.
Is he the My Pillow guy?
He is the My Pillow guy.
Yeah, no, I've not seen it, but I've heard about it.
I sometimes call him Mike Pillow, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, he's got a new complaint that he's trying to peddle to the Attorney Generals of the United States, and he hasn't gotten any of them online. And I'm a little bit worried that I don't know. I mean, I don't. Do you really think? Do you think that there's any chance of Donald Trump getting back into office?
Before the next election? No.
Well, no, I do. Well, at the next election, do you think that the elections are sufficiently honest?
This is what's going to happen.
Okay.
In the upcoming election, the Republicans are going to take over the House and the Senate. And they're going to try to put McCarthy as the Speaker of the House, and there's going to be rejection. And so people are going to nominate Donald Trump as the new Speaker of the House, and he will be made to be the Speaker of the House. And he'll step in there with his bullhead. He doesn't want to sit through legislation. He's not going to want to go to the Capitol Hill every day. But when something comes up, he's going to dig in his heels. He's going to be shallow-minded, and he's going to rule, and he's going to force people to move in a direction that they've not been considering. And there's going to be just all sorts of cacophony that breaks loose over this. And he's going to run for president, and he's going to get reelected, and the cacophony will continue until we see some major change. That's my prognostication.
I just realized there's a connection between what you're saying today and what you were saying a week ago. Like a week ago, you were saying that what we need is chaos. And you're basically saying that Donald Trump is the instrument of chaos that you think will give us the chance to rebuild.
There you go. You got it. You exposed me.
Well, I think I'm understanding you, and it makes a certain amount of sense, but he has not yet actually announced he's running for Congress, right?
Oh no, he doesn't have to be Congress. He didn't have to be
you don't have to be a member of Congress
to be a Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House. I would be satisfied with Donald Trump Jr.
I wouldn't.
Oh, you wouldn't? Okay.
No.
I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I don't like Donald Trump Jr. But
my opinion is that Donald Trump is a full-blown psychopath, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's why we need him. We need him in there. But yeah, I lost my train of thought. But in any event,
the train of thought was chaos. We're moving towards chaos under Donald Trump. So, I mean, you're sort of reaffirming your status as an anarcho-fascist, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Could be.
And I think Trump's strong point may be the fact that he hates to lose, absolutely hates to lose. And in normal circumstances, he would never even consider being the Speaker of the House. But hey, he lost, so he wants to do something, I think, to win. You know, I don't know if there's a logic behind it, but that's just the way he thinks. So it could happen.
Yeah, we'll see. One point that I want to make is that we know what happened yesterday. We know what's happening now, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And we can sit and postulate and think this is going to happen, but we don't know. However, like they say, hindsight is 20/20. When you look back at what happens, you can say, aha, I see how we got there. I can see when they first said, oh, separate but equal, and the Jim Crow laws are bad, and we want to have affirmative action, and then white people are bad. We can see how the people are pushing in that direction, how the whites have capitulated, and the non-whites have asserted himself until we have the situation that we have now. So we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but once the future is upon us and we look back, there will be an aha moment, say, yes, why didn't we see that happening? Why couldn't we predict that? So this is what's going to happen, where there's going to be racism fatigue, donor fatigue, fiat currency fatigue, and the white people are going to look forward to the chaos that happens by the new Trump administration, and all things will break loose, and then there'll be a change, and we'll reassert ourselves, and there'll be white unicorns and pretty butterflies, and we'll say, aha, yes, that is the path. We should have predicted it. That's my thought.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, it's fascinating, the whole thing, but I don't know. I guess I feel like there's the possibility that the system is so corrupt that it may be very difficult to elect Donald Trump again, because the whole world seemed tremendously surprised 5 years ago when he got into the presidency the first time.
Okay, I have met many people internationally, and when Donald Trump was first elected president, he was ballyhooed and ridiculed by everybody that I came in contact in the course of my business, whether they were whites or Oriental Asians or whatever. That he was ballyhooed. And now when I meet people, they say, oh, gee, I like Trump. Everybody likes Trump now. And so there has been a big shift in public perception, international perception of Donald Trump. Domestically, there's a whole lot of people that don't like him, but there's a whole lot of people that do like him. So I think he will run. I think he will be elected. Of course, having him to be the Speaker of the House in the next 2 years, that's far-fetched, but it could happen.
People have been talking about it.
How old will he be in 2 years? I don't know what his age is.
I don't know. He's really old, but
he's younger than Biden, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But I don't know. In any event, you guys, how Edward, Charles, how long is this going to last? I don't mean to.
How long does what last?
This hour show is it an hour or?
I think that's up to you.
Okay, because I kind of have to take off. But are you going to attend the board meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock my time?
Oh, okay. I can. I forgot about it, but thank you.
Why don't you do that?
I have major communication problems. No one ever sends me a reminder.
Okay. All right. Well, come on board because I do want to talk to you about some things. And Ken, I enjoyed this, and we need to start doing a separate one, or another one as well. Okay.
Well, Ken, thank you. Bill, thank you, and we will talk. We will talk very soon. This is Charles Duncan from the House of the Fallen at Pompeii, signing off. And well, let's pray for a white Christmas. How about that?
Very good. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right, everybody.
Take care. Thanks.